Well, that was surprising. Not in a wow, that episode was really good kind of way. More like, did the writers actually learn something? I don't know if I'm ready to give them that much credit yet, so let's just dive into this thing and see if we can figure out what's going on here. Episode 3 begins with the crew doing open mic night, I'm assuming. Boimler's playing the violin and doing some kind of river dance type thing, and the piece is about his mother. He seems to play well, but no one in the audience cares. Then he's about to launch into his next piece, also about his mother, when Mariner and Tendi kick him off the stage so they can play something. Mariner's one of those people who thinks any god-awful droning crap counts as music if you play it loud enough, and she's playing loud enough to shake the entire ship. And that sucks for the captain, who's on the horn with a Klingon ship, and this guy thinks that she's using the noise to mock him, so she tells the Bajoran security dude to go kill whatever's making all the racket. So Mariner and Tendi finish playing, they leave the stage, Boimler gets ready to play again, security guy comes in thinking he was the one making all the noise, and breaks his violin in half. Not in a funny way exactly. I mean, the writers seem to think it's hilarious when bad things happen to Boimler, even though that's not really how comedy works. More like, oh, that's an unfortunate misunderstanding. There were no jokes here as far as I could tell, but at least there was nothing that pissed me off, which already puts it ahead of episode 2. After the credits, the captain's pissed off because she had an important job of speaking at some big peace summit with the Cardassians, but they've been taken off that assignment and now the Cerritos is on an equally important mission. Delivering presents to some shit planet. The first officer doesn't think it's a big deal, but the captain's mad as a wet hen about this and thinks nobody in Starfleet respects the Cerritos because they don't demand respect. Okay, it could be that. Or it could be that the Cerritos is crewed by a bunch of dumbasses who couldn't trek their way out of a paper bag. I think the pilot made that pretty clear. And if you need more proof, let's cut over to our 4 main characters doing maintenance on the force fields in the brig and testing them by Mariner shooting a phaser at Boimler without even realizing it was set on kill. Wow, and Starfleet doesn't respect these people? Your guess is as good as mine. So once the force field is fixed, Mariner orders fresh margs from the replicator so they can get a good buzz going. And this is what the lower decks peeps call buffer time, which is when you give a longer than expected timetable to complete a task so you can look like a hero for finishing early and have free time to goof off and ignore your duties afterward. A lower decks tradition as it happens. Even Boimler goes along with it. Not that he likes it, dude loves to work, but all the cool kids are doing it, so Buffer time sounds like something that would get them in a lot of trouble if anyone ever found out about it. So naturally, in the very next scene, Boimler accidentally mentions it to the captain. So she's on the warpath now, and she puts the whole crew on these insane timetables to fill a quota for duties completed every 60 seconds or something. So Mariner has to go on an away mission to deliver the presents to some alien crystal people. The mission is commanded by the first officer, Ransom, and he's cocky, full of himself, loves to brag, but he's also a stickler for following procedure and protocol and things like that. He wasn't in the pilot when he let an alien contagion on the ship due to not bothering with stupid things like basic quarantine and stuff, but now he is because the plot needs him to. This guy seems designed to get under Mariner's skin, and he tells her to roll her sleeves down, which does not improve her opinion of him. So they shuttle down to the planet to meet with some people, and they have to present something called the Honor Crystal that the first contact team got to prove that they're trustworthy or whatever, but when they open the case, there's a log in there instead, because during all the chaos and confusion up on the ship, the dude responsible for this stuff loaded the wrong case. So instead of the very important honor crystal they need to maintain diplomatic relations, they have a piece of wood. And the crystal people are furious at this because he's got wood! He's got wood! Which the writers think is funny because they're all 12 years old. The crystal people instantly attack them, they spear one dude in the chest. Because Mariner is the bestest ever, she takes down 5 of them by hand in about 5 seconds. Spears are flying everywhere, the crew takes cover, Mariner thinks they should just phaser these assholes and f*** off, but Ransom wants to try diplomacy. Because, you know, Star Trek. So Ransom walks out to talk to the Crystal people, they throw his wood at him, it nails him in the crotch, because Boimler took the nut shot last week, so I guess it was his turn, and the crew gets captured. Back on the Cerritos, the crew is still frantically running around all over the place trying to get all their work done and meet their 60-second quotas, but they're all exhausted and falling apart. And this makes them easy pickings when the Crystal people attack the ship and board it. And the captain orders the crew to repel this boarding party, but not to use that as an excuse to slack off on their duties, because if they don't meet their quotas, their ass is grass. So this is going to require multitasking. And multitasking, well, that's Boimler's wheelhouse. So this is actually right up his alley. Back on the planet, the away team has been tied up, except for Mariner and Ransom, who are in a cell together. Ransom's working on a speech to get them out of this, but Mariner thinks that's lame, and Ransom talks a good game, but when it comes down to it, he can't get the job done, and blah blah blah. So they're arguing and getting closer and closer as they get more and more heated, and it looks like they're about to do that thing in TV where 2 characters are fighting and then they make out. And that may still be on the table, but they don't get the chance. The Crystal people tell them that they're having a trial by combat. One of them has to fight this massive 10-foot behemoth dude, and if they win, they go free, but if they lose, they all die. Mariner's down for trial by combat, so when the lead Crystal guy tosses them a sword, she starts fighting Ransom over it. Meanwhile, I'm confused as to why they can't just beam back to the ship. It was already pointed out earlier by Mariner that they could have easily beamed down to the planet instead of taking the shuttle. So we know the transporter works here, and they all still have their communicators too. So there's nothing stopping them from calling the Cerritos for help right now, and yet they don't. And if you're using the excuse of, well, they can't beam back because the crew is busy dealing with a hostile boarding party, I'd like to point out that just 2 episodes ago, Mariner and Boimler easily beamed up to the ship while there was a zombie apocalypse happening on board, so that excuse is garbage. So Mariner's like, I'm a super awesome badass, and I'll prove it by stripping down to my undies and showing you all the cool, sexy scars that I got from fighting, so I can totally win this trial by combat. But Ransom wants to do this himself because he's the commanding officer and it's his responsibility. Mariner thinks that's dumb and Protocol can go f*** itself because she's the best at fighting and sometimes you've got to do what's wrong to survive. Ransom agrees. So they get in real close and then he takes the sword and stabs her in the foot with it. This is the closest the episode gets to a joke that lands. They subverted a common trope, and instead surprised us with Mariner getting horribly injured. And I'm a lot more inclined to enjoy that than when it happens to Boimler, because Mariner is intolerable. I still wasn't laughing, but I did get a little satisfaction out of it. So Ransom's doing this because no one messes with his team. He tears off his uniform to reveal that he's this chiseled Adonis. He walks out of the cell, throws down the sword, and obliterates the 10-foot behemoth dude with his bare hands like it's the easiest thing in the world. Which is definitely how I thought this would get resolved, but not who I thought would be doing it. So, points for swerving me, I guess. And Mariner's really put out that Ransom stole her thunder, but she's also kinda turned on at the same time. And to see Mariner out of sorts like this is actually kinda refreshing. I don't expect it'll last very long, but I did appreciate it. So Ransom crushes the trial by combat, the team gets released, and I have no idea why they couldn't just beam back to the ship and easily avoid all this, but I guess the writers just aren't gonna bother addressing that. On the Cerritos, Boimler gets cornered by 3 Crystal people with spears, so he just phasers them, and that's that. It's easily the coolest thing the writers have let him do in 3 episodes, so this is a pretty big deal for him. Then he goes to the bridge to figure out what the hell's going on, and he finds the captain pissed off because the crew has fallen 15 whole minutes behind schedule and their quota for the month is gonna be subpar. assuming they don't all get killed in the next few minutes. And she's just feeling really defeated right now, because the crew being on a strict, rigid, nightmarish work schedule somehow has not solved all their problems like she thought it would. Well, yeah, angry aliens spearing the crew to death will do that. So in a downright stunning application of competence and basic common sense, Boimler points out that the schedule is the problem, because he may be living his best life right now, but not everyone is a Boimler. So if you just get rid of the stupid quotas and let the crew actually, do something about this hostile boarding party, that could go a long way towards getting them out of this predicament. I know, right? So the captain takes his advice, and she orders the crew to cut every corner, break every rule, abandon every protocol they have to save their ship from going to hell, because buffer time for the win, bitches! The crew beats the shit out of the crystal people with their iPads, the invasion's over, and the captain gives Boimler an approving nod. Which, from the way he reacts, might be the biggest compliment he's ever received. Bless his pathetic little heart. So the crew present the crystal people with the honor crystal, so there's no hard feelings about that boarding the ship and trying to kill them thing, and Mariner decides to not report Ransom for stabbing her because now that she's seen him without a shirt on, and watched him break protocol by getting them out of trouble with brute force instead of boring, lame diplomacy, she's realized that he's actually pretty cool. Too bad he's sending her to the brig for not rolling her sleeves down when he ordered her to. So Mariner's pissed off, she thinks Ransom's a jerk again, he thinks her being pissed off is kinda hot, and I guess this is gonna be a thing now. And I'm actually in favor of that, because any character that can piss Mariner off is a character we need to see more of. Then Boimler goes to see the captain, who was so impressed with his advice today that she's issuing a new ship-wide mandate. The Boimler effect, which will encourage shortcuts, discourage blindly following the rules, and allow the crew to have buffer time whenever the hell they want. It's Boimler's worst nightmare come to life. It's even immortalized on a plaque and everything. Naturally, Boimler's bummed out about this because he loves blindly following the rules. But Rutherford and Tendi tell him not to worry, this'll all be forgotten about pretty soon. And the episode ends with a flash forward to the far future where a teacher is telling her students all about the Boimler effect, named after the laziest, most corner-cutting slacker piece of shit in Starfleet history. Now Boimler's humiliation is complete, and then she moves on to teaching about the most important person in Starfleet ever, Chief Miles O'Brien. It's a weird random shout-out that comes completely out of nowhere, but the Chief was on DS9, and I liked that, so fine? This episode wasn't bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. There were a couple positive developments here. Boimler got to do something useful, and not just because Mariner allowed him to. He was portrayed as competent, and he was instrumental in resolving a crisis. So he wasn't just there to be the butt of every joke this time. I mean, yeah, he was the butt of that joke at the end, but that was character-related, not done to embarrass him just because. Whereas Mariner was still super amazing, badass, awesome at everything Mariner, but she actually kind of got upstaged by Ransom here. And she was shown to not be so perfect that someone else can't get under her skin and piss her off, which I count as a positive. Also, for as much as the male characters were just crapped on non-stop in the last one, in this episode it was the dudes who saved the day. So maybe the scales are balanced a little more than I thought at first, but let's not jump to conclusions just yet. This could very well have been a fluke. There's still the matter of some things not making sense and the show overall just not being funny, but there was nothing in this episode that made me want to rage quit at least, so I didn't laugh, but I wasn't giving my computer screen the middle finger every 5 minutes, so progress? This episode was better than the first two, but that's not saying much. And they may have taken a step in the right direction, but the bar's still set pretty low, and they're gonna have to raise it a lot more than they did here if they want to save this thing. Given the state of current year Star Trek, though, by the time the writers actually get around to making any real positive changes, if they make them at all, I don't know how many viewers are going to be left to care. If you enjoyed this review, or if you didn't, leave me a comment. Also, while you're here, ding that bell icon and follow me on social media to be notified when I upload new videos. The link is down there. Give it a like, share it around, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll be back with more very soon. Until then, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.